Well, tonight, U.S. President Barack Obama and top members of his administration have launched an intense two-day push to convince Congress and the American people of why it needs to respond militarily to Syria's alleged use of chemical weapons. But in an interview to air on American television Monday, Syrian President Bashar al-Assad denies ordering a chemical weapons attack. VOA's Ken Klein tells us why a congressional no vote has wide-ranging implications for Mr. Obama.
After charges that Syria attacked its citizens with chemical weapons last month, President Obama is asking Congress to approve his plan for military strikes on Syria. But many Americans oppose military action, and they're pressuring lawmakers such as Republican Senator John McCain, who supported limited strikes.
So I want to begin by saying to you that I am unalterably opposed to having a single American boot on the ground in Syria.
Despite the very real possibility of legislative defeat, Mr. Obama believes congressional authorization will strengthen his hand, both at home and abroad.
I think we will be more effective and stronger if, in fact, Congress authorizes this action.
Seeking congressional approval also carries political risks for the president, according to Stephen Heidemann at the U.S. Institute of Peace.
But from where we stand right now, it isn't at all clear whether he will prevail in Congress. And if he does not, then I think, yes, this decision to seek congressional approval will turn out to have significant consequences for the president's credibility.
A no vote from Congress could also weaken U.S. diplomatic efforts to resolve the conflict, according to Heidemann.
And if the U.S. loses influence, if people feel they cannot trust the president or that he cannot honor his commitments, it becomes that much harder for the U.S. to use leverage, to use influence with various actors to try to bring this conflict to a close.
President Obama contends that the integrity of the United States and the international community are tied to the decision to strike Syria. That credibility could be damaged by a no vote, says Blaise Mishtal at Washington's Bipartisan Policy Center.
I think it would be a blow to the U.S.'s credibility at this point if, after all the pronouncements of red lines and decisions to act, we were now to back down.
Congressional approval of his planned strikes on Syria are widely seen as giving Mr. Obama added legitimacy, so he will take his case to the American public Tuesday in a rare nationally televised evening address. Kent Klein, VOA News, the White House.
If President Obama eventually orders airstrikes on Syria, U.S. military leaders have laid out their goals if there is an attack. But as VOA's Pentagon correspondent Luis Ramirez reports, officials are also weighing the scenarios that could follow the first shot.
The U.S. aim is to weaken Syria's defenses enough to eventually bring about the negotiated departure of Bashar al-Assad. General Martin Dempsey, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, told senators the proportionate and limited strike that he would be in charge of would be a first step.
To deter, that is to say, change the regime's calculus about the use of chemical weapons and degrade his ability to do so.
To do that, the U.S. has Tomahawk missiles ready to hit Syrian government targets. About 40 of the missiles are aboard each of 4 destroyers that are deployed to the eastern Mediterranean. The U.S. has doubled the number of vessels in the region. An amphibious vessel, the USS San Antonio, has also been called in. And the Nimitz aircraft carrier group is nearby in the Red Sea, ready to be called into action. The administration rules out wider action for now, but observers say once the United States fires the first missile, Washington becomes a participant in Syria's civil war, and a promise to stay out of the conflict becomes difficult to keep. CATO analyst Benjamin Friedman.
Right now we're denying that we want to overthrow the regime, but the fact is when you're bombing targets, government targets in Syria, and there are rebels trying to overthrow the government, you are, whether you say it or not, trying to overthrow the government. But you're only doing it a little bit.
If Syria's chemical weapons were to fall in the hands of militants or if there were complete chaos, Secretary of State John Kerry told senators he would want the president to have the option of putting U.S. troops on the ground. But he added quickly that was only a hypothetical statement. A strike could last a few hours or a few days, but Pentagon planners are ready for possible wider consequences. U.S. forces have little to expect in terms of a response from Syria's comparatively weak military. They would watch for a possible retaliation by Iran-backed Hezbollah and other militant groups that could launch attacks against Israel and other U.S. allies in the region. Luis Ramirez, VOA News, at the Pentagon.
Well, to keep you informed on the crisis in Syria, Tuesday night, VOA will broadcast a 30-minute special report as we cover President Barack Obama's speech to the nation. Be sure to watch President Obama's address here on VOA. Now, turning